At my retirement party, I gave my son my business shares. He laughed and said, "Thanks, old fool. Now get out." My DL poured wine on my suit and sneered, "You're just dead weight now." I walked out in silence. But the next morning, their office doors were padlocked because I'm 66. I built a facilities management company from nothing, literally nothing. Just a mop, a rusted-out van, and my own two hands. Back in 1985, I was working nights cleaning offices in Pittsburgh while my wife watched our boy, David. We were dirt poor, and I mean that in every sense. I'd come home at 4 a.m. reeking of bleach, too tired to eat. But I kept grinding. By the time David was in high school, I had 3 vans, 6 employees, and a book of commercial contracts that covered downtown and most of the South Hills. He used to ride along during summer breaks, help clean floors, take inventory, even run errands for me. I remember telling him, "If you ever take this over, you'll know every bolt and screw." I thought I was teaching him pride and hard work. I thought he admired me. He went off to college in New York, full scholarship, business school. I was proud. He graduated with honors. Came back with big ideas. I figured it was time to let him start managing the day-to-day. I still handled finances, legal, insurance. He ran operations. We had some friction, but I chalked it up to generational stuff. I'm old-fashioned, I admit that. Then he married Megan. I never liked her. She was flashy, always name-dropping, bragging about networking, and looking down her nose at how we built the business. Called it manual labor, like it was beneath her. But she got her claws in quick. Within a year, she was consulting for our HR department and throwing her weight around like she was co-owner. Still, I bit my tongue. Then came the retirement talk. David started pushing hard. Said I should enjoy life, travel, relax, all while trying to speed up the paperwork to transfer my shares. I told him I wasn't ready. He smiled and said, "It's already handled." I checked with my lawyer. He hadn't done anything yet. But that was the moment I knew something was off. When my staff threw a retirement party, something simple, just a dinner, I was grateful. But David took over. Booked a ballroom downtown, brought in vendors, made it this whole passing of the torch event. He called it a changing of the guard. That night, I gave my little speech. I didn't cry, but it was hard. I talked about how I started, who helped me along the way, and how proud I was to pass the business to my son. Then I handed over the folder, legal transfer of my 51% controlling shares. Signed, notarized. David took it, didn't even shake my hand. He stood up, smiled big for the cameras, leaned in, and said, like he was delivering a punchline, "Thanks, old fool. Now get out of the way." People laughed. Thought it was a joke. I knew it wasn't. I stood there stunned, heart thudding in my chest. Then Megan walked over with a glass of red wine, looked me in the eye and said, "You're just dead weight now." Then she dumped the whole glass on my chest. My suit was soaked. People gasped. A few of my older employees looked horrified. But the younger ones? Some smirked. Some actually clapped. I didn't say a word. I just nodded, turned, and walked out into the night. It was 9:12 p.m. By 10 a.m. the next morning, the office doors were padlocked. Because I wasn't quite as foolish as they thought. The night I walked out of that party, I didn't go home. I drove around for hours, ending up at an all-night diner in McKeesport where nobody knew me. I just sat there, suit stained with wine, replaying every moment, every insult, every stupid time I defended them. But I wasn't broken. I was pissed and wide awake. See, I never trusted David completely. Over the past few years, I had slowly moved the company's assets into a separate holding corporation, one he knew nothing about. All the trucks, the equipment, the real estate, the insurance contracts, even the website and IT infrastructure owned by that holding company, not the operating LLC. He had 51% of the operating company, but it didn't own anything, at least everything from me. So at 6 a.m. that morning, I called my lawyer, Terry. She's sharp, ex-IRS, and a pit bull. I told her everything. She didn't even blink. By 8 a.m., she had filed an immediate cease and desist against the operating company for breach of contract. She cited mismanagement, hostile takeover behavior, and failure to notify stakeholders of major ownership shifts. And by 10 a.m., per the terms of the lease agreements, we locked them out. I hired a private security firm I'd worked with for years. They went to every office, every warehouse, every site, changed the locks, shut off badge access, posted signs, Closed due to legal dispute. David called me 27 times. I didn't answer. Megan sent a text. You can't do this. We'll sue. I replied with 2 words, try me. Then it all started to unravel. David didn't understand how deep the contracts ran. Every client account was still under my name. The operating company only had permission to service them under strict conditions. So when I sent letters to each one explaining the situation, nearly all of them suspended their payments until the dispute was resolved. Payroll bounced that Friday. Megan posted on Facebook that they were under attack by bitter old forces. She didn't realize she'd just admitted to the whole city that they weren't in control. The staff started walking. Some of them reached out to me directly, quietly, privately, saying they had no idea this was coming. That they didn't agree with what David had done. I didn't bring them back right away. I told them I needed time to think. And all the while, David kept scrambling. Called my banker, my lawyer, even my old union contacts. But nobody helped him. They all knew the truth. He hadn't earned this. He tried to cut out the man who built the whole damn thing, and he did it with a smirk. But this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Because next, I went after the one thing Megan really cared about, her image. While David scrambled to fix the chaos, Megan went into full panic mode. She started messaging former clients directly on LinkedIn, trying to salvage contracts behind David's back. I know because one of those clients, a friend of mine for 20 years, forwarded me her messages. She was offering steep discounts, blaming internal disputes, and trying to poach them into a new business she called Megan Solutions. I did some digging. Turns out, 3 weeks before my retirement party, Megan registered a new LLC in her name alone. Not David's, just hers. It was almost an exact copy of our services, same descriptions, even used our logo, just recolored. That's when I realized, this wasn't just David being arrogant. This was a setup, a full-blown betrayal. They thought they could force me out, steal my clients, dump the legal liabilities, and relaunch without me. Young, flashy, modern, but they were sloppy and greedy. I sent all the documentation to Terry. Within 48 hours, she filed an injunction and a cease and desist against Megan's LLC for IP theft, violation of non-compete clauses, and breach of fiduciary duty. We also filed with the state licensing board. Then I dropped the hammer. I called the IRS because I knew something they didn't. For the past year, David and Megan had been running payroll through a third-party app to modernize. But they never updated the employee classification codes. A few workers were misclassified as independent contractors when they should have been employees. That meant unpaid payroll taxes. I gave the IRS everything. Detailed, signed documentation. Every improper 1099. Every off-book bonus they handed out to keep people loyal. I didn't do it to be spiteful. I did it because that's what the law requires. 3 weeks later, they got audited. Their accounts were frozen. I didn't celebrate. I didn't drink. I didn't gloat. I just went back to work. But the twist that hit hardest came from someone I didn't expect, David's little sister, my daughter Rachel. She flew in from Chicago out of the blue, knocked on my door with tears in her eyes. I didn't know, she said. They lied to me. They told me you wanted out, that you were tired and couldn't handle things anymore. Then she handed me something, a USB drive. She said, I found this on David's laptop last time I visited. He left it open. You should see what's on it. What I saw made my blood run cold. It was a folder of draft emails, David writing to a corporate acquisition firm. He was planning to sell the company. My company. The one I bled for. He was in talks to offload the whole thing once I was legally out of the way. And Megan was going to take a 6-figure consulting fee for rebranding it. They never wanted to run it. They just wanted to cash out. They were going to sell my life's work to strangers. And that's when I decided. I wasn't just going to stop them. I was going to bury them. Once I saw those emails on the USB, everything locked into place. David and Megan weren't just selfish. They were thieves. They used my name, my sweat, my decades of work as a stepping stone. They were going to sell everything and leave me to rot in some quiet corner of Pittsburgh like a broken-down relic. Not on my watch. I sent the files to Terry, my lawyer. She went straight to our civil judge with a request for a restraining order and a full financial freeze on all company-related assets, pending fraud investigation. Then we submitted the draft emails as evidence of intent to commit shareholder fraud and asset stripping. The judge signed off. Everything David and Megan touched was put on ice. They couldn't access bank accounts. They couldn't pay lawyers. Their house, bought using consulting bonuses from the company, was under review for clawback. I didn't just shut them down. I made sure every investor, partner, and friend knew who they really were. The worst part? They didn't even see it coming. David finally showed up at my door a week later. No suit, no smirk, just a wrinkled polo shirt and bloodshot eyes. He didn't knock. He pounded. I opened the door but didn't let him in. He said, "Dad, please. You've made your point." I stared at him for a long time. Then I said, "No, not yet." He broke down crying right there. Told me they were being sued, investigated, and blacklisted. That Megan had taken what money they had left and gone to her sister's place in Florida. That he didn't know how to fix it. That's when I hit him with the last truth. "Son," I said, "you had everything. You were going to get it all. I was going to put the holding company in your name next year. But you got greedy, and you forgot who taught you how to work." He looked like a shell. Like the boy who used to sweep floors beside me was still somewhere in there, lost and scared. "I didn't know she was doing all that," he said. I nodded. "That's your problem. You never wanted to know." Then I closed the door. A month later, I officially restructured the business. I brought back the loyal employees, gave raises. I didn't keep the company for myself. I gave 40% ownership to a worker-owned trust. The other 60% I split between Rachel, who never asked for a dime, and 3 longtime managers who stuck with me even when things got ugly. David filed for bankruptcy. Megan? She vanished. But a private investigator told me she tried starting another business under a different name in Tampa. I made sure every legal judgment we filed followed her there. I didn't ruin them out of spite. I did it because they tried to erase me, erase what I built, who I was. They thought I was too old to fight back. They forgot I built this thing with nothing but my hands and my will. And I still had both.